Hi there, this is Lee McQueen, and I'm once again talking about Jill Stein of the Green Party. And I'm very interested in seeing Jill Stein in the White House. That's what I'm looking forward to. Some people are thinking, like, well, we'll vote for her in the swing states, and then, the other safe state. Jill Stein is not promoting a safe state strategy. That's not what she's here for. She wants to win every state. She wants to go to the White House. So I think some people are still trying to strategize with the Hillary Clinton campaign. Jill Stein is not an offshoot of the Hillary Clinton campaign. She's not recruiting for the Democratic Party. She is in a separate and opposition party to the Democratic Party. The Green Party is separate from the Democratic Party. They're in a contest, and Jill Stein wants her Greens to win against not only the Democratic Party, but also the Republican Party. These are all separate parties. So you're either voting for the Greens or you're voting Democratic. The safe state strategy is not an official position of the Green Party. It's not what they're working for. They're working to win. And so if you're a progressive and you support progressive issues, if you support Bernie Sanders' platform, that platform is at the Green Party. It's unadulterated. It's not watered down. It's completely what it is. It's not a flip-flop tool. It's not a game. It's a Green Party progressive platform. It was that yesterday. It is that today. And it'll be that tomorrow. And so if someone is a disaffected Democratic voter, there is a choice to make. You can make it between four different parties: the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, and the Democratic Party. But there's no, the Green Party is not a subsidiary of the Democratic Party. They're separate. So I think that's the correct way to view it. I'm seeing kind of some different ways of, well, maybe the Greens can help reform. That they're not interested in reforming the Democratic Party. They're interested in winning on their issues, on progressive issues. That's why they're there. And with Hillary Clinton, the very worst Democratic nominee ever in the history of Democratic politics, as the standard bearer, that's your indication right there of what the Democratic Party is about. They chose her. They had alternatives. They had Martin O'Malley. They had Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was the better choice, the better alternative. He was a stronger choice. And they kneecapped him at every turn. Bernie Sanders was the one who would have easily won against Donald Trump, and they made sure to prevent him from becoming the nominee in various ways. Whatever crime it took, whatever malfeasance it took, they made sure that Bernie Sanders would not lead that party. And so if you're progressive and you're looking for a progressive platform inside the Democratic Party, that's not what they're trying to do. The fact that TPP is still on the platform, the fact that fracking is still on the platform, that they have not instituted a carbon tax on the platform, these are indications of what you're seeking you will not find. You can keep looking. You can kind of hold Hillary Clinton's feet to the fire. You can try some reform. You can hold her accountable. But the FBI wasn't able to hold Hillary Clinton accountable. Do you really think that anyone else can? The Justice Department wasn't able to hold Hillary Clinton accountable. So the voters think that they can, but Hillary Clinton stomped voters this entire Democratic primary. So when you're saying, well, I'm going to vote for her, but then I'm going to try to reform her, she doesn't want to be reformed. She wants to be what she is. She likes being what she is. She celebrates, being what she is. This whole winning of the Democratic nomination was a celebration for Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't a type of oh, I won. I just wish I hadn't had to do the things I had to do in order to win. No, it's more like I won. Good for me. It was worth it. You cannot reform her. She does not want to be reformed. Neither does the Democratic Party want to be reformed. Reform has been tried by Eugene McCarthy and George McGovern, who were Vietnam era protesters. They were peace candidates against the war in Vietnam. They were kneecapped by their own party, the Democratic Party. Then you had Jesse Jackson in 1984 and 1988. Income inequality. He wanted some opportunities in housing and education and things like in jobs. He was a progressive candidate. He ran on a progressive platform. He was winning until he was kneecapped. He wanted to reform. He wanted to use his Rainbow Coalition to send progressives into office, to train them and send them into office. That was a reform attempt. He was sidelined. He was smeared. He was kneecapped. And then that began the rise of Bill Clinton, and you saw the triangulation strategy, doing anything to win type of strategy. You saw progressives marginalized because people were ordered to vote for the lesser evil. Lesser evil, lesser evil, lesser evil, until now you have Hillary Clinton, concentration of lesser evil voting, which has now resulted in her emerging to power. So there's been reform attempts for 30, 40 years. And now there's Bernie Sanders saying, well, let's reform the Democratic Party. Vote for Hillary Clinton, the very worst candidate ever, who used criminal activity and intimidation and voter disenfranchisement and fraud and racketeering and corruption against the voters. Her crime was against the voters, not necessarily Bernie Sanders. It was against the voters and the people who donated money to his campaign. These were the victims of Hillary Clinton's criminal activity, hers, the Democratic National Convention or Committee, and then the mainstream media who colluded with her, which has now been proven. So now there's a call like, all you voters that were victimized, help us reform. What we're hearing is basically an abuser trying to prevent his victim from trying to leave the home. It's a domestic violence encounter between a violent abuser who's afraid that his victim is about to leave him, and he'll say anything and do anything to prevent that from happening. And so that's what we're seeing, like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, please forgive me, but you just made me mad, so stop making me mad at you and I won't hit you. And this is what the Democratic Party is trying to do to its base to prevent them from demexiting. Because people are demexiting. They're, the Democrats Party is saying, like, whoa, what about our down ballot candidates? Oh, don't leave and this and that, and try to reform, and we'll try to be better. Look, we've got a $15 minimum wage. See, look what this shiny new thing I got you. Don't leave me. But I think voters have seen enough, and quite a few of them are demexiting. Some of them are returning back to either the Republican or liberal or libertarian parties. They're going back to the Greens, or they're going back to independent status. They registered as Democrats in order to specifically vote for Bernie Sanders. And then after Bernie Sanders was kneecapped, and then their votes were stolen, they decided to retreat back to where they come from. So they were never Hillary Clinton's voters. They were always Bernie Sanders voters, and now they're possibly Jill Stein's voters for many reasons. Jill Stein is a different sort of candidate. We can see by her behavior in Philadelphia, where she, rather than living it up with the power players inside the convention, she was outside the conventions with the people who were trying to advocate for actual democracy within the political system. Jill was with them. And not only that, she visited around the city to the poor regions. She visited with the homeless. She talked to them about the economic issues, and that wasn't her first trip there. She'd been to the poor side of Philadelphia more than once, and it's not like a lot of cameras were following her around. It wasn't a photo op. She has gone through the impoverished Kensington area of Philadelphia times before, and it was kind of like a contrast to, what we saw presented with the Republican Party and then the Democratic Party. And that just is a really clear indication of what Jill Stein's pretty much about. And I'm going to go on a little bit further to talk about Jill Stein and the benefit, despite how the primary season for the Democratic Party ended and the tragedy that was the nomination of Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. Jill Stein is the beneficiary, not Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton thinks she's the beneficiary, but her negatives are so high that any benefit that Bernie Sanders could have brought her is going to be swallowed up and pulled down and dragged down with Hillary Clinton. Her negatives were high even during the primary, and they just kept going down. And now that all these issues have been revealed by WikiLeaks, it's done nothing to improve her negatives. Her negatives overshadow any positive that Bernie Sanders might have brought her. In fact, Bernie Sanders' favorability might take a hit as well. And that's too bad. Because up until now, he was one of the highest ranking, he had one of the highest favorable rankings of anyone in the Senate. So, but anyway, Jill Stein is going to be the beneficiary likely. She has name recognition from her 2012 run. She actually ran against Roseanne Barr and won the nomination. Roseanne went on to win the nomination for the Peace and Freedom or Peace and Family Party, but Jill Stein was the nominee in 2012, and so she is still the record holder for the number of votes won by a female candidate in the general election. And I think that's fantastic. She may still hold that record based on how the rest of these lawsuits and investigations go against Hillary Clinton. But Jill Stein is the record holder for most votes won by a female candidate in the general election. Fortunately, Bernie Sanders provided Jill Stein a clear blueprint of where to find her voters. Every state that Bernie Sanders won, every contest that Bernie Sanders won, is an indication of where Jill Stein can target her message. She's doing a 50-state strategy, but if she ever wanted to figure out where likely voters would be, all she has to do is follow Bernie Sanders' blueprint. I believe he won either 22 or 23 states in some other contests, and then he actually tied Hillary Clinton and lost by mere decimal points, so a technical tie, many states in the Midwest. And then also there's some questions on whether those were fair contests anyway, because there was some serious vote fraud going on that was always away from Bernie Sanders' favor and in favor of Hillary Clinton. So there's probably at least 30 states. If she looks carefully at where Bernie Sanders tied and then where he actually won, that's where she'll find her voters. Those are the independents and the progressives. Bernie Sanders actually did the favor of energizing the progressive base and the independents, and so he moved the progressive platform from the fringes. What I did note was that even during the Democratic Party primary, that Jill Stein was always very respectful of Bernie Sanders, that she spoke praisingly of Bernie Sanders, even while acknowledging that the Democratic Party was not playing fair to him and that there had been issues with progressive presidential candidates within the Democratic Party in years past. Eugene McCarthy, George McGovern, Jesse Jackson, even Gary Hart, Jerry Brown, Howard Dean, Bill Bradley, Bernie Sanders. So there was always issues, and following the same patterns, Bernie Sanders defied that pattern, and he was on track to win. And it took criminal activity and collusion in order to prevent him from winning. But all the same, Jill Stein was always respectful, and she chose not to emerge from under the radar until it was very clear that the Democratic Party would not allow him the fair opportunity to compete against Hillary Clinton. She has clear messaging. There's no flip-flopping with Jill Stein. She is not required to bow down to the Democratic Party. She is not part of the Democratic Party. She's left. She's a progressive. Maybe she could be described as liberal, but I would say she's more progressive than anything. But she is not part of the Democratic Party, and neither is the Green Party. They are separate parties. And so, actually, it's possible that the Green Party will also benefit from the largest voting bloc of independent and progressive voters, which is only going to get larger because of the Demexit, the policy that our U.S. electorate borrowed from the British electorate of demexiting political system that does not address their needs. There's going to be a mass demexit of Democratic voters from, they're going to change their registration either from Democratic to Independent, from Democratic to Green, or even from Democratic to Libertarian, or from Democratic to Republican. The Democrat Party is weakening. They are losing their voter base based upon how they conducted themselves. And that's no one's fault but the Democratic Party. We cannot put that down on the voters, although some people are trying. And there's some guilt tripping going on, like, wait, you can't leave? What about, Hillary Clinton? What about progressive issues? What about, and, we can find that in the Green Party. Jill Stein is also a woman. If we want a woman president, there she is. Her name is Jill Stein. If we want progressive issues addressed, there they are in the Green Party. Progressive issues on down the list. So, there's an attempt at guilt tripping by the Democratic Party, but you don't have what people are looking for, so they're leaving you. Also, the fundraising is up at the Green Party as a direct result of the malfeasance by the Democratic Party. Individual voters are not really sending their money to the Democratic Party. There's a kind of a bid to get $27 by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And people have said, you don't need us when you have Goldman Sachs. We're going to send our funds to the Green Party. So Hillary Clinton is basically kryptonite when it comes to fundraising from individual donors. And Bernie Sanders, his positiveness cannot overcome her negativity. So that's why fundraising is up at the Green Party. They also have volunteers. Hillary Clinton claims to be a progressive, but Jill Stein is a progressive. They're trying to sell Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton's choice as vice president, as progressive. And he's even saying, like, well, I don't support TPP anymore, even though he supported it last week. And even though Hillary Clinton supported it 45 times in the past, and she was an architect in its creation, and there are emails at the State Department that show this, so Barack Obama had to issue a court order to suppress them until after the election. So Hillary Clinton has always been an ardent supporter of the TPP, and her support for TPP is matched only by Tim Kaine's support for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Although they're saying, like, okay, we don't support it. If anyone believes that, you'll believe anything. I just want to say that Jill Stein and the Green Party are 100% against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They felt that same. They were against it back then. They're against it today. They're going to be against it tomorrow. There's no flip-flopping. So Jill Stein is also a woman. If anyone's playing the woman card, there she is. She's intelligent. She's educated. She's from an ethnic, a religious. She's got a religious ethnicity of being Jewish, and so she can't really be attacked in the same way that Bernie Sanders was attacked, and that possibly Gary Johnson might be attacked and Donald Trump is being attacked. There's just, that's not just the right attack strategy on Jill Stein. So, back again to what I mentioned about Jill Stein still holding the record as being the woman who's won the most votes of any presidential candidate in a general election. I just want to point out that in 2012, that's when she won. But in 2008, Hillary Clinton never made it out of the primary. So she has, I think Jill Stein is ahead of her at least on that level. And then, even with the 2008 primary, Hillary Clinton started out ahead with many advantages, and she just kept descending in support because of her. No one else but her. And then in 2016, the only way she made it through the primary was through collusion. And the WikiLeaks dump of all those documents of how this was planned, how the DNC had to help her, how the mainstream media had to help her, and then Wall Street had to help her. And then when that still wasn't enough, she turned to criminal activity and election fraud in at least 11 states. And so that's how she stacks up against Jill Stein. So there's an article out by H.A. Goodman, and it's called Dr. Stein is the New Bernie Sanders. And I think it makes several really good points. And I'm just going to post a link to that in the description. And so back to the fundraising. I mentioned that fundraising is up at the Green Party as a direct result of the negativity that's found at the Democratic Party, and it almost speaks for itself. Even Bernie Sanders, his fundraising is down now because he's made his choice of Hillary Clinton. He's mentioned that any fundraising he's doing now is to focus on down ballot candidates. He's still sending out fundraising appeals to assist his, down ballot candidates. But people are just looking at the Democratic Party and, there's a lack of trust now. Bernie Sanders was trusted by progressives up until he went along with what the Democratic Party was choosing. And he made his choice. And so now the progressives have to make their choice. Do they want to follow where he goes, or do they want to go a different direction? And many are choosing just to continue demexiting to a different direction. And the question really becomes, does the Democratic Party, including the down ballot progressives, do they really need money from voters who are suffering from income inequality? That are suffering from job loss, from part-time underemployment? Do they really need to solicit fundraising from these voters now that they are with her, with Hillary Clinton, now that they've chosen their nominee? Do they really need our funding if they've got Goldman Sachs, if they've got the prison lobby, if they've got military defense contractors, if they've got pharmaceutical companies, if they've got fossil fuel, oil and gas companies contributing to their campaigns? Do they really need to send those fundraising solicitations out saying, help us with our Democratic down ballot candidates? I'm thinking no. There's a better use for that money, perhaps the Green Party, which does not accept money from these large corporations. They're a self-funded organization. Um, and then the flip-flopping, the ambivalence, the ambiguity of the Democratic Party is just so hard to reckon with. I mean, even under a popular president in Barack Obama, who ran his campaign as a progressive, saying that he was going to shut down Guantanamo Bay, he was going to put an end to all these wars, the fact that he didn't vote for the Iraq War, that it's going to be crime reform, all this stuff. And then once he took office, it didn't happen. A lot of things that he intended or said he intended, it didn't happen. There was a continuance of the drug war. There was a continuance of mass incarceration. There was a continuance of police violence, police shootings and aggression against citizens. There was even an expansion in the military industrial complex with the drone wars. There were regime changes through Hillary Clinton's State Department, Haiti, Honduras, places in the Middle East. There was also a war on whistleblowers, people who were trying to reveal to us what was happening behind the scenes, even within an administration that sold itself to the American public as being transparent. So, this is what the Democratic Party has shown us that they are. The domestic spying and surveillance, and then the criminalization of the whistleblowers and vows of retribution against these whistleblowers like Eric Snowden, and then Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, Jeffrey Sterling, anyone who spoke up about what was happening behind the scenes, they were punished. And so all this has happened underneath a Democratic president. Guantanamo is still open. We even have Barack Obama's very ardent, very vocal, very aggressive, very sinister and insidious, snaky, reptilian-like support is slithering around the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He's still trying to get that passed. And this is a Democratic president who is trying to enact the largest corporate power grab, anti-human, anti-environment, anti-worker, and then anti-government, pro-business corporate power grab that has ever been created for any nation in the world. This is Barack Obama, who ran as a progressive, attempting to enact this. And so, not only that, the TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, both Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine were vocal supporters of these trade deals. Now that they're saying they're not, and does anyone believe them? And so, the Democratic Party has just revealed itself as being unacceptable to any voter with common sense. And so people are turning to the Green Party to actually represent people interests rather than corporate interests. And it's too bad that they chose Hillary Clinton as the person to sell the Democratic Party to the North American electorate. She couldn't sell herself in 2008. She couldn't even sell herself in 2016. She had to resort to criminal type of behavior in order to get this far. So can she sell herself in the general election? Doubtful. I'm definitely going to be voting for Jill Stein. And if you're progressive, maybe re-examine your priorities. If you're considering falling in line with the Democratic Party and with Hillary Clinton, you can't reform someone who doesn't want to be reformed.